Writing of a survey report. Let's have first our objectives for this session. First is we are going to identify the components of a survey report. Second is we are going to analyze the sample survey reports. And third, you are going to write a survey report. What is a survey report? In your book, in your module, survey report is a formal piece of writing based on research. Of course, this is a report that will be uh, a summary, an interpretation of the survey results that you will be conducting. And in the survey, your results should be presented in a percentage or proportions. And like all academic articles or write ups, a survey report has three main parts. We have the introduction, main body, and conclusion. Others, or your teacher will, or your teacher may ask you a title page, main body, conclusion, appendices, and references. In the appendices, you are going to attach your survey uh, survey questionnaires. And in the references, if you have adapted a questionnaire or you have ideas taken from different sources, then you have to cite it in the references. Okay, stop share. Let us dive into samples of survey report, which you see yourself and analyze. Hello, let me hear someone to tell me if my screen is already shared.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Because I
sir.
cannot see you guys in my laptop. Okay, so I will just run through it. This is a sample of a survey report, and this report is entitled Knowledgeable but Slow to Change, an investigation into the relationship between environmental knowledge and behavior change. This is the first paragraph of the survey report that was conducted by this author. Environmental awareness has been increasing over the last few decades due to campaigns by environmental NGOs and governments as well as education to encourage people to modify their behavior along more sustainable lines. At the same time, some, but by no means all businesses have supported this trend by developing and promoting green or environmentally friendly products. However, the trend towards increasing consumption has continued, resulting in increased use of packaging and energy. For example, large cars, especially four-wheel drives, with significantly increased fuel consumptions, are becoming more popular. In these sentences, you will notice that it presents us the background of the study, the background of your topic. So that is the very first thing that you have to establish in your introduction of your survey report, that your your the readers will be able to understand the background of the topic at hand. You are giving insights as to why this survey is conducted and the reason behind why it is known, or the reason behind why you have conducted this research. So in this sample survey report, we have here the background. And then in the introduction also, you are going to add on the significance. You have to indicate the significance of the research. Like in this In this report, the writer indicated the significance. Why is it significant to study this topic? It is useful then to know how effective the educational campaigns have been, not only in increasing the public's knowledge, but also in modifying their behavior towards greater sustainability, and also to find out how campaigns can increase their effectiveness further. The next element that you have to include in your introduction is the objective or the objectives of your research. The purpose of this research was first to investigate how much knowledge or a representative sample of people actually have about environmentally sustainable behavior, and secondly, to find out the extent to which this knowledge has led to a positive change in behavior. A final aim was to look at the factors that are most effective at encouraging people to make their behavior more sustainable so that future campaigns can be targeted effectively. So, in this sentence, you can see the objective. Again, we are still in the introduction. First, you have to consider the background. Second, you have to consider the significance. And then you have to tell the readers about the objective of this study or survey. So in this study, we have first, highlighted in yellow, second, and third. There are three objectives. Moreover, you also have to include the number of respondents where you have uh, gathered your data from. In here, the sample size was 52. These respondents were selected from a variety of age, gender, and socioeconomic backgrounds. They were all residents of urban areas. Then, you should also include how you gathered your data. So, this is the methodology. You should tell the readers about the methods you used when you conducted the survey, and the channels used to spread it, and the ways used to analyze the data that you have collected. Let me read this one. Data collection was carried out through the use of a questionnaire. Since this is a survey, you have to really use the questionnaire. And you were already oriented with the questionnaires, different questionnaires in the previous presentations. Initially, the questions were trialed with a sample of 10 people, and then a new improved questionnaire was then devised. This comprised 10 questions and focused on some of the most common behaviors. It attempted to elicit frequencies of particular behaviors such as reusing items, even when buying new ones was more convenient, and choosing to buy goods with less packaging than their competitors. So, in this part of the introduction, you have to describe the data collection or the methodology. So, you have to take note on that. Now, let's move on to the main body of your research. In the main body of your research, or I mean your survey report, you can have subheads or subheadings. Like here, findings regarding knowledge and findings regarding behavior. Because the researcher of this survey report has had two sections in his questionnaire. The first section is about knowledge, and then the second session is about behavior. So he opted to have two parts in his body. So this is subhead 1. Let me read to you his output. Knowledge of what the three R's represent was reassuringly high. 45 of the respondents, 87%, could say that the three R's were However, only a much smaller proportion, 23% or 12 respondents, could say accurately that reduction of waste and consumption was the most important of the three. As for more practical knowledge, all participants knew how to recycle, but only two-thirds of the respondents, 35 respondents, were able to give without prompting ways in which they could reduce their consumption. The weakest area of knowledge was in techniques for reusing. With only 16 respondents, 31% were able to come up with unprompted ideas. However, when given suggestions such as taking used supermarket bags to the supermarket instead of being given more new ones or buying reusable instead of disposable products. A high 90% said the idea was familiar. If you noticed, this part or this paragraph talks about the result of the section about the knowledge of using three R's. Now, moving on to the second part or paragraph of this survey report, turning to what people actually do rather than just know about recycling was the largest category, with 79% saying they do this as much as possible and 88% of respondents claiming to do it from time to time. Reducing waste and consumption, however, was a very different matter, with only 69% doing anything in this regard. For example, just over half of all respondents, 52%, said they had in the past brought an alternative product because it had less packaging. And 32 or 58% claimed that the energy consumption of products was a major factor in their purchasing decisions. Reusing again was the least common behavior, with only 62% able to cite examples of having done this. Just over one third, or 18 respondents, or 35%, had reused supermarket bags. Despite the high level of awareness of the importance of this, and only 38% of respondents said they never bought disposable products when reusable ones were available. So, the body tells us the elements in the body, as you can see, since this is a survey report, you can see here percentages 62%, 38%. These actually were based on the gathered data. So you really have to tally. And then after tallying, you have to interpret it. Okay, by element, by section, by question. Question number one, for example, you are going to interpret how many responded, how many percent responded yes, and how many percent in the no. So you have to interpret that one and have it discussed thoroughly in the body. Now let's move on to the conclusion. This is just one. Okay, the first sample survey report that I'll be showing you. In conclusion, it is clear that there is a discrepancy between knowledge of the three R's, knowledge of how to follow them, and the extent to which people actually do follow them in their actions. It is interesting that many respondents who couldn't suggest a way to follow the three R's were not able to do this after prompting, but realized they actually did do it themselves. This suggests that a lot of knowledge is subconscious. However, it is disappointing that many people, despite knowing how to recycle, reduce, and reuse, don't actually do it. Expense and lack convenience are the biggest obstacle to environmentally sound behavior. In the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, what are the things that you have to remember when you conclude? Always go back to your objectives. Okay? You have to restate. You don't necessarily have to uh, repeat how you have uh, constructed the sentences in your objective, because in the summary you are going to go back to the objective. Okay, you're going to summarize the result in your own words, of course, and others have recommendations in their conclusions. So it is recommended also that you have recommendations in your conclusions. Just like this example, he has a recommendation. Because such a large proportion could not name ways to reduce or reuse the most important of the three R's, it is recommended that campaigns shift their focus from recycling and highlighting the three R's to actually providing concrete practical suggestions for how to implement them. These suggestions should be as convenient and cheap as possible for the public in order to reduce the obstacles to their implementation. And I also included the reference where I got this sample. If you have references or if you have a source in your discussion, you really have to cite it in the reference of in the last part of your survey report to avoid plagiarism. So let's review that this sample survey report. The elements are: number one, the introduction should have a background. Number two, it should have significance. Number three, the objectives are clearly stated. And then the sample size or the respondents and the methodology. How did you collect or how did you conduct your survey? And in the body, you are going to discuss, of course, the results of your survey. And lastly, we have here the conclusion. You may also include the recommendation and references. The second one is here. This can actually be found in your module. This is a bit shorter, okay? This is a very short survey report, but of course, since you will conduct your survey, you have a questionnaire or you have questionnaires, you have to make it a bit longer and thoroughly discuss your report. So this one is simpler as compared to the one presented a while back. So here, survey of academic and general reading in English. The blue colored sentence tells us when was the survey conducted, who were the participants. The second sentence or the red one, it talks about the purpose, the aim of the survey. Moving on to the second paragraph, this is the methodology. It it's just simply described in few words, but you can actually thoroughly discuss or give a bigger picture. So let me read. The survey was conducted by means of a questionnaire given to the students to complete. The first part of the questionnaire dealt with the type of reading and its frequency. The second section was concerned with newspapers, the type of items read, and those that were read first. So you can see here how was the information gathered, the methodology, what kind of questions were asked. So the writer of this described the questionnaire. You can do that as well as part of your introduction. Now let's go to the body. As you can see, the introduction of this survey report is very short. So it is only composed of two paragraphs. So let's proceed to the main body. So the first paragraph is talking about the first section of the survey questionnaire. And the second paragraph talks about the second section of the questionnaire. But actually, you can have many paragraphs if necessary. From the table of data, the most significant items are as follows. In the first section, 81% of the students regularly read academic books, while 44% regularly read academic journals. Nothing else is read regularly or often by 40% or more of the students. The following comments can be made about the reading of newspapers, magazines, and fictions. 75% sometimes read regional or local. So, as you can see in this paragraph, there are percentages. So, you have to interpret what do you mean by 81%? What do you mean by 44% from your gathered data or interpreted data? What do you mean by 40%? You must be able to describe it full well uh, in your discussion in the main body. The second section was also discussed. 100% read news about their own country in newspaper and 56% read this first. So generally, you can see that the main body of this article is just discussing about the result of the survey. Let's proceed to the conclusion. If any conclusions may be drawn from the data, they are perhaps as follows. Overseas students presumably have little time for general reading. Most of their reading time is spent on books and journals on their own subject. So let us go back to the purpose or the objective of the study. The purpose was to discover the reading habits in English of the students. And as you can see in the summary, that objective is answered succinctly. Overseas students presumably have little time for general reading. As I've said a while ago, that in the summary, you have to summarize, especially the objective of the study, the answer of the objective. Although it has been discussed all throughout in your main body, but you have to restate it in the conclusion. So that's it. Let me show you a sample of an output wherein it has tables, and the table is interpreted sample. Here, this is actually a survey about the student journalists, the gender, male, female, and then pila ka buok, 9%, 18%. Out of 50 students, there is only 9 of, out of 50 student journalists, there are 9 male and 41 female. So if you convert that one in percentage, you have 9 as 18% and 82% female. So let me show you how this report is being interpreted. Table 4 presents the distribution of the student respondents by gender. So it described the table of the 50 respondents. 18% were males and 82% were females. So you have to learn these expressions of the 50 respondents. 18% were males and 82% were females to describe the gathered data. The data indicated that female respondents exceeded the number of male respondents by 32, literally. Okay? It is describing the data. This could imply that teachers need to give more encouragement to male students and provide motivating activities in order to develop in them a positive attitude towards writing. So the writer of this report interpreted the data. Ah, 18% lang ang mga lalaki, 82% ra ang mga babae. So motivated ang mga babae as compared to the male students. Mas daghan writers sa female kaysa sa male according to this survey. So the researcher interpreted it as this. It implies that teachers need to give more encouragement to male students and provide motivating activities in order to develop in them a positive attitude towards writing. Actually, you can do that in your report. You are going to interpret it. However, make sure that you are going to support it with a study as well. Okay? So in this research, in this survey, the researcher reported that the study of Rains 2006 indicated that female group obtained a higher average mean than the male in terms of positive attitude towards writing. Thus, it disclosed why most of the journalists were females. So, what the writer had discovered in her survey had actually the same or the same result with Rains 2006. So it is supported. You can do this one so that it is actually study driven or research driven. Your claims are being supported by other researchers. It could either be opposed to your research. For example, in this research, daghan ang lalaki kaysa daghan ang babae kaysa lalaki. Pwede pod nga sa other nga researchers na ay mga other researchers nga mas daghan ang writer nga mga lalaki as compared sa mga babae. So you can also state that one. Okay? Another. Moreover, he added another researcher, Beron 2003 studied on some sociocultural demographic factors associated with some common errors in written, and that found female students perform better than male. So this is not telling everyone that female are better than male. No, this is the result of the survey questionnaires that the researcher had gathered. So at the end of your report, you can always have references. Okay? Because those were not your claims. You just use it to back up, to establish your claims. And not necessarily, again, not necessarily that you will have researchers which research results or research reports that will be the same as your findings. You can also have those reports which are not the same with your findings. Another sample, this one is taken. So again, this is a sample interpretation in the main body. Okay? Because you will not find here the background. Okay, so this is the body, how one should discuss in the body of your survey report. 6 of 10 Filipino students used devices for distance learning amid the pandemic, according to the latest Social Weather Station survey, which also found that families who bought devices spent around 8,000 pesos per student. So when was it conducted? It was on November 21 to 25. Among household heads, the survey found out that 58% of enrolled Filipinos aged 5 to 20 years use devices for distance learning, while 42% did not. Those who use devices either owned 27%, bought 12%, borrowed devices 10%, received 9%, or rented 0.3%. How did they come up with those percentages? Of course, they have floated their questionnaires or survey questionnaires. In here, the writer further described the study or the research, the survey by area. Metro Manila had the highest percentage of students who use devices at 96%. If you're just going to say in Metro Manila, there are 96% students, 96%. So 96%, ano lang, Metro Manila had 96%. So dili kay siya klaro. You have to make it clear. So in this report, highest percentage of students who use devices. So iya yung describe unsa din ng 96%. Okay? It was followed by Luzon, outside Metro Manila at 64%, Visayas 43, Mindanao at 41 among the students whose families, so on and so forth. The source is Inquirer because we have survey news, which is actually just almost the same with the survey report. I am going to upload this sample in our Facebook group or Facebook page so that you have something to. Uh, this is just among many. We still have more. So let me just be clear that those are just samples that I have gathered myself, but you can actually have more samples, and you can actually have those samples as your patterns, as your models on how to come up with your own survey report. But generally, that is the picture of a survey report. How to write it? Of course, you have to make sure that you have already your questionnaire and make sure that your questionnaires are polished. And then after that one, as checked by your teacher, and then after that one, you float it and you gather the data. But while waiting for the gathering of the data, begin with the introduction. Okay? You have to tell us about the background, all those elements that I have presented to you. And then after that one, make sure that you will be able to highlight the purpose of your research or the objectives. Why do you conduct that research? And then you are going to discuss, you are going to thoroughly discuss. Do not settle for a one-page survey report because that would seem that it's just an assignment that you can do actually overnight. But this one, I have heard that it's going to be a 10-day activity that you are going to do. So I advise you that you are going to interpret all the data. For example, if you have 10 questions, what are the responses in question number one? And then what are the responses of the rest of the questions? And then you discuss it. And then what does this figure tell us? What are its implications? Do not just narrate to us what you have seen in the table. Instead, you draw something. You draw implications. What does this mean? Kung 7 ra ang lalaki nga mga writer versus 30 ra, 30 nga mga babae nga writer, what does it imply? So you have to interpret that one. And to make your interpretations more believable, you have to support it with a study. This pwede ka moingon nga kanang this is also the same with the study of Amas 2013. Mga ingon nanay na ana ba? Unsa man ang study ni Amas 2013? Mo talk siya about sa imuhang study pod. However, a study of blah blah blah, Amas 2020, for example, 2015, wala siya ni agree sa imong study. So ang imong study mo contradict siya, ni contradict ang uban nga study sa imuha. However, sa imuha mao ni ang result. So you have to really emphasize that one. So that can actually be found in your main body. Just an additional input. In your discussion, make sure that uh, the objectives, make sure that the questions, the objectives that you have established in the first paragraphs should be answered. Most of the time, chronologically, like question number one should be answered in the paragraph it is presented in the first part of your paragraphs in the main body. The second objective should be discussed as well in the second body. That is how you are going to present your survey report. You might ask, Sir, butangan pa ba namo, sir, og kaning mga butangan pa ba namo og mga table ang amo ang main body? Butangan pa ba namo, sir, og mga graphs, mga pie graph o uban pa ang amo ang main body. Actually, a survey report pwede siya. Kaya ang survey report if you are going to expand it, it will become a survey research na siya. May mo siyang survey research. Kanila nga tuwang ginahimo is a mini research. Survey report lang siya. Pero, if you wish to do it, why not? Mas nindot siya. Patakan mo table 1 or graph 1, pwede siya ingon ana. Pero it depends to your subject teacher. Pag gusto siya nga plain lang tanan, dayon ang imuha dayong mga tables will just be attached in the appendices. Pwede ra siya ingon ana. Okay? So, any questions?